into Caesar. We're going to kill Caesar today. So why was Julius Caesar assassinated? We're really going to kind of start there. We will get into why Caesar why his death did not restore a working Republican constitution. And we might get to number 5. We'll see. We're 30 minutes in at this point, so we probably will have to save this one for next week, is my guess. We left off talking about Julius Caesar and really the kind of elections that he set up. So he's back in Rome, he's won the Civil War, and he does not set up what we might call a restored constitution. Right away, the democratic element in the system is heavily managed by Julius Caesar. So he would circulate written statements to the voters, and he would say, the dictator Julius Caesar, I commend to you this man or that man, so that they may hold their positions with the support of your votes. In other words, you got to vote for this guy. There's really not an election that's meant to happen here. This is the way that Caesar handles the elections when he obtains full power in Rome. There are some interesting appointments that he makes as part of these managed elections. One of them is one of his enemies, a guy named Brutus. Brutus, famously, as you know, will be one of the people that wield the knife on the Ides of March. Brutus had fought against Julius Caesar in the Battle of Pharsalus. Brutus had fought on Pompey's side, and so this was an enemy that had taken arms against Julius Caesar. He not only pardons him, but he makes Brutus the urban praetor, right? Which is sort of the of all the praetors, kind of the most important, the most significant of the praetors. He gets to stay in Rome. That's one of the things that he does. Another thing that he does, which isn't directly an election issue, but is a kind of appointment issue, is that he increases the size of the Senate to 900 senators. And in doing that, obviously you can't just manufacture 300 senators out of nowhere. You can't hold 300 elections for quaestors. So, of course, this means Julius Caesar gets to take his supporters, the people that are loyal to him, and put them in the government. He also puts some people in from northern Italy who are considered kind of impure. These are people that are descended from Gallic and Celtic peoples. This enrages many of the members of Rome's traditional aristocracy, people that had their ancestors fighting against Celts and Gauls in the distant past, and now the descendants of those people are being put into the Roman Senate by this guy, Julius Caesar. Who does he think he is for doing this sort of thing? He doubles the number of quaestors all the way up to 40. So there are now going to be 40 quaestors, and there are going to be 16 praetors. So adds a number of offices. Again, there is a necessity here. The empire is big. Caesar wants to send his loyal followers out to governorships with loyal quaestors with them. There's an empire to be managed, so it does make sense that you would appoint this many people. At the same time, to these positions go these people, the people that he commends to the electorate so that they can vote them in. The other thing that Caesar does is engage in a pretty, it will be small compared to what some emperors do, but for the time, it's a pretty impressive building program. Numerous buildings and temples are added. The most important of these is his forum, which he had already kind of planned earlier back when he was in Gaul. He had kind of started this building, had begun to pay for it. And this is all out of his personal money back when he was fighting in Gaul. But this thing comes to completion while he is dictator in Rome. It is a very impressive structure with statues along the colonnades. These would have various famous Romans in their, sort of lining up so that people could admire them. Kings and other people, in some cases people that took power, people that held executive or kind of primacy in the Roman Republic. The comparison is obvious. Julius Caesar is also such a person. He's not overtly saying he's a king, but he's kind of comparing himself to these authoritative men in Rome's past. There would be a new Senate house that Julius Caesar built. In the Forum also, by the way, is this temple to Venus. This is something that we will see his heir do as well, and that is erecting temples to particular gods. He picks Venus because in the mythology of the Julii, Venus is one of the progenitors of the Julius Caesar family line. And so obviously he would pick, it's like picking one of his ancestors, but also showing that he has some divinity in his ancestry. So this is just a not too subtle way to kind of say, I'm descended from gods. This goddess is in my background, and everybody, by the way, right, is going to worship her in this temple that I have built. So it's a very impressive structure. Oh, I should mention, I don't know if it's in this forum or if it is somewhere else in the city, but we're told in at least one literary source that he also erected a statue to Cleopatra. Interesting choice. This is not officially his wife. His son by Cleopatra is not legitimate by Roman law, and yet he actually invites her to Rome to live there in Rome and honors her, this foreign queen, with a statue. And again, do not underestimate the xenophobia of Romans. They do not like Easterners, especially Celtic peoples, and Julius Caesar has started to do some of this, this kind of thing. This is a little bit scary for some of the more conservative, more traditionalist, kind of culturally, these people that really want to kind of have a very narrow view of what Roman culture is. So there is that. In addition to the building projects, another thing that Julius Caesar does is economic relief. So very popular measures like debt, well, not full-on cancellation of debt, but cancellation of interest payments. So he allows debtors to make repayments only on the principal. They do not have to pay interest for a period of time. So he doesn't outright cancel debts like many had hoped, but he does provide some relief. There are some sources that suggest there was a debt rebellion brewing in Rome. There were a lot of debtors that were very upset, and Julius Caesar is doing this to contain those elements which would rise up against him. There are some other economic measures for the lower class, like rent control. So it puts in some rent control. These would be limits on how much renters could charge for certain properties. In some cases, and I don't remember what the dividing line is, there are some people that also get free rent for 1 year. And again, I'm sorry, I don't remember who it is, but there are two groups. One group has caps on their rent, and then the other group gets to not pay rent for a year. So there's some real relief there. Land prices had gone up as a result of the Civil War and a variety of other calamities in recent times. Julius Caesar puts a cap on the price of land. Land cannot sell for a price higher than it sold prior to his civil war against Pompey. So again, this is just an attempt to try to relieve some of the economic stress that's the result largely of the Civil War that he himself instigated. One more thing that he does for the economy, which is a big one, and this kind of sounds like Sulla in some ways, and it was probably a mixed bag, is that he reduces the number of people that are eligible for free grain. So initially, probably by this point, there are about 300,000 male Romans that were taking free grain, 5 modii of grain per month. So this is about a person and a half worth of grain to feed them every month. 300,000 people are taking this. Julius Caesar cuts this number in half. And I don't recall any source mentioned, you can't see that, it's 150,000. I don't recall a source explaining exactly how he does this. There are historians that theorize about how. One of the arguments is that he applies a more rigorous test for citizenship, that he strips some people of citizenship on various bases. I'm not sure what. This is just one theory as to how it is that he does this. But there's no means test. He does not have a means test, which would be, if you have a certain amount of land or you make a certain amount of money, you're not eligible. He wouldn't do that because the grain ration is not just like economic welfare, it's status. I talked to you about this. It was a marker of status to be able to live off the surplus of other people. So this was viewed as like a good thing, the fact that you were this sort of person. So even if you were wealthy and didn't need the grain, it was a marker of privilege that you got it. And so you didn't want to take it away from people just because they had wealth. So that's a big change. Another big change is the calendar. Some of you might know this. Well, of course you do, because you know that we have a month named after Julius Caesar, the month of July. But there's a lot more than July that goes on. As you know, we have a 365-day calendar with a leap day every 4 years. That's largely Julius Caesar's doing. The calendar, as it had existed, had gone way off kilter during the period of civil war. So the Battle of Pharsalus, for example, officially happens on August 1st. Convenient that that line was there, August 1st. So that's when on the calendar that battle happened. In reality, it's probably in like spring, April-ish that battle, that's how far off the calendar was. The season of spring was happening in August. So huge problem with the calendar. So Julius Caesar adds an additional 2 months worth of days to try to round out the calendar. So we end up with a 445-day year for this year that he changes the calendar. I think it's 46 BC. It might have been 47. I can't remember. Or 45. One of those years is the year that he picks to just add this huge chunk of time to the calendar. So it's a 445-day year just one time. And then after that, we get the 365-day year with the leap day. And that effectively fixes the calendar. Now, there's still going to be one more adjustment that's made later on where, I can't remember what it is, like about every century, the leap day gets skipped, I think is what it is. I can't remember how it works, but it fixes a slight, Julius Caesar's calendar is very close, but the Gregorian calendar obviously is better, and so that fix gets made. But effectively, this fixes the calendar, certainly for the rest of the period of Roman history. So that's a pretty big deal, and then we have that situated. The other thing that he does is let me see where I can write this, colonies. So Julius Caesar has a whole bunch of veterans, both that fought for him and that fought for Pompey and Cato and the others. And so he needs to settle those people. So he does that. He creates colonies largely outside of Italy. And he refounds 2 cities that the Romans destroyed. Any guesses as to what those cities might be? Famous cities that the Romans had destroyed? Corinth and were you going to say that, Mario? Yeah, Corinth and Carthage. So he refounds those cities, sends a bunch of veterans there, and those cities will reemerge as very populous cities when we get to the imperial period. So huge deal there, brings those cities back, extends citizenship to these Celtic descended people in the north of Italy, grants them all Roman citizenship. Sicilians in Sicily, these people are granted the Latin Rite, if you remember the Latin Rite, which is almost citizenship. It's pretty close. So the Latin Rite is given to people in Sicily, which is obviously a great benefit to them, allows them to own property in Rome, allows them marriage rights, legitimacy, inheritance rights, a variety of things that gets them, which are, again, may sound like legal things, but they're very important when we think about passing land and passing wealth on to your descendants in a way that's recognized by Roman law. So it allows these people to start to build generational wealth in the eyes of Romans. That's a very big deal. So there's that, the colonies, the calendar. What am I leaving out? Oh, collegia, another C word, collegia. So the ban on collegia is reinstituted by Julius Caesar. So these had been banned in 64 BC, and then Clodius brings them back in 58 BC. Julius Caesar does not want any violence in the streets, and so he bans them once again. These people had been allied to Clodius. Clodius and Julius Caesar eventually have a falling out. There's just a little potential there maybe for some problems. So again, dealing with the grain dole and also dealing with the collegia is going to help his problem with the mob. He does not want to see an uprising, and those 2 measures are going to help him in the city of Rome, governing the city of Rome in particular. So again, great moves for Julius Caesar as far as he's concerned. Economic populism, reforming the calendar, addressing his veterans, extending citizenship, resolving the food crisis, a variety of things there that we can say that Julius Caesar solves, or at least temporarily. Let's talk about how permanent and absolute his power was. Another way we could say this is that Caesar was preeminent. So if we're asking, why was Julius Caesar assassinated? Well, Julius Caesar elevated himself above everybody else, especially other elites. So we think about, for example, his political power, okay? One of the things is that he accepts the dictatorship, okay, in perpetuity. Dictatorship in perpetuity, right there. So not 10 years, not 1 year, not till the end of the crisis, forever. He just gets to be dictator for life. Now think about that, okay? I don't think Julius Caesar thought about this. If you take the dictatorship for life, there's one way that your dictatorship could come to an end if nobody likes you. Yeah, right, exactly. So again, maybe not fully thought through. Might have been, he probably should have taken it year by year maybe. And then that way, he doesn't have to face the end that he ends up facing. So this dictatorship is, is absolute. He can't be vetoed. He manages all of the consuls and the praetors are at his disposal. Like he gets to command them. So even if some of them are being elected, they still have to do what he says as dictator. It's not just a ceremonial position. He is also given the power of the censor. So that's what this means here when Suetonius says responsibility for morals. The office through which he would do that is through the censorship. And he gets not a 1.5-year term, but a 3-year term. So Julius Caesar is going to be censor for 3 years. He gets to kick people out of the Senate. He gets to bring people into the Senate. And that's the basis, by the way, that he can use to bring people into the Senate is his power of the censor. So again, all of these rights that he gets to have. He gets asked his opinion first in the Senate. He gets to sit in a special chair called the curule chair. We're told that it was a golden seat in the Senate House. So a curule chair made out of gold. It's just a kind of chair that's associated with being a commander or Rome. In Rome, consuls would sit in this chair, commanders, governors would sit in this chair, and he gets to bring it into the Senate House and have it right there, and supposedly it was made of gold. Again, a variety of other things are mentioned here by Suetonius. Games, temples, altars to Julius Caesar. Guy is not even dead. The guy's not a god, and yet he gets altars. Statues placed beside those of the gods, and that's probably going on in his forum, right? There's those statues of great Romans, statues of gods, and then there's Julius Caesar there too. A priest, so he gets a priest that gets to follow him around. This, by the way, will eventually, I don't have room to write, will be a guy named Mark Antony. One of his tribunes of the plebs will serve as this priest. An extra college of Luperci. And a month of the year. Now, this happens probably after he dies, although we don't know exactly when this happens. This is the month of July. Right? We still have it. We still have that month named after Julius Caesar. There were no honors which he did not either confer or receive as he willed. So, and if you think about this too, while he is dictator, he is, in most years, not all years, I think 46 or 47 is this exception, but in most of these years, he's also one of the consuls. So in other words, there's not really a second place either. Like Julius Caesar gets the dictatorship and he's also the senior consul. So there's not even some scraps thrown to other people, other elites in the Roman Republic. And again, they're not even, if they're elected to a magistracy, they're often being elected because Julius Caesar has recommended this. So they owe him for the elect. There's no ability for these people to earn this stuff on their own. And you can see how this is going to build resentment among elites. Obviously, there are a bunch of religious and honorific rewards, some of which we see here. He is Pontifex Maximus. He has been Pontifex Maximus for a while, chief priest. You see the temples, you see the priest. He is given in 44 BC. His body is made sacrosanct, just like a tribune of the plebs. Okay? Julius Caesar is not even a plebeian, and he is given this unique power that a tribune of the plebs is supposed to have, which is his body is actually holy. And again, he's not outright a god and a king, but you can see that functionally, these are attributes that a king and a god would have. From his holy body to his absolute and sort of permanent power. Games were held. triumphs. Obviously, he holds 5 triumphs, which we read about last time. He gets the title Father of the Nation. So this is, Cicero had this title and a few other Romans, a very, very rare title that he's given. His birthday is celebrated as a kind of citywide holiday. Oh, and then this is the other one that I think is kind of a big deal. And it's interesting when we think about the assassination, is he makes every senator swear a personal oath of loyalty to him, that they will be personally loyal to the man, Julius Caesar, not to the consul, not to an office or the office of dictator, personally loyal to the man, Julius Caesar. That's a big step. That's a huge step. And subsequent emperors will command that same kind of oath, a personal oath of loyalty. So we're seeing, again, really Republican stuff at this point. Julius Caesar's measures, of course, are practical, like the economic measures, but a lot of what he's doing is not involving the nobility. And really the main way that they're involved is just to praise him, is just to give him adulation and show in all of these different ways that they are underneath him. That has to get tiring after a period of time. This is going to breed resentment. And the war is over. The Civil War has been fought. There is really no justification in terms of an emergency for these sorts of powers. So how are they going to end, right? There's no... If they didn't end at the end of the crisis, what can possibly bring them to an end? Again, we've already, the question kind of answers itself. Julius Caesar is going to have to die if this is going to end. Julius Caesar also has this famous moment, we're told, by Suetonius. I think it is also, if I remember correctly, recorded in Plutarch, where in early 44 BC, they are celebrating the Lupercalia, this festival in the city of Rome, and Mark Antony comes to him. Mark Antony is serving as consul in the year 44 BC with Julius Caesar. So Julius Caesar is dictator, and then Julius Caesar is also consul, and then his best bud, Mark Antony, is the other consul. So again, no room here for elites outside of Julius Caesar's loyalists. There's no positions for them whatsoever. And Antony goes up to Julius Caesar with a crown, and he keeps trying to put it on Julius Caesar's head, and then eventually Julius Caesar pushes it away, and he had it sent to the capital. There's so much speculation about this episode, and we don't know. Was this just Antony? You'll figure this out. Antony is a kind of an impulsive guy. Was he just, was he a little drunk, and he's just okay, and he starts putting the crown, and they're just doing something for fun, and Caesar's don't do this. Or, there's a view among scholars that actually, Mark Antony was supposed to crown him. And maybe just Julius Caesar kind of was reading the room and kind of thought, well, I don't know if I should do this. And he changed his mind. We don't know. We don't know why this went the way that it did. But whatever happened, whatever the motives for what happened, this was probably too much also, right? This is just rubbing it in. That really, even though he doesn't take the crown, he could have. He could have. And he's letting everybody know that. He's just letting people know. I wasn't making shots the other day at my basketball game, and the guy I missed 10 shots, and the guy that was guarding me just stopped guarding me. He's I'm not even why I guard him? He's not making any shots. And he starts doubling up on the big guy down low. And whoa, that was degrading. I mean, it was so embarrassing. And everybody knows that he doesn't have to guard me because I missed 10 shots in a row. This is way more than that. This is just absolutely devastating to the nobility. Even though Caesar doesn't get crowned king, he could be king, no problem. All right, if that doesn't make everybody mad, check out this coin. And this is not the only coin that looks like this. We've got Julius Caesar's bald head right on this coin, right here with his crown right there, and we've got the title here. Caesar, right? Caesar, dictator perpetuo, dictator for life. Rub it in. Guys' face and his titles in their pockets. Can't even get away from this guy. And of course, on the back of the coin are all these symbols of power. We've got the caduces, which is a symbol of religious authority. We've got the fasces right here. the bundle of rods with the axe, and here's an axe right here. It kind of looks like a chair, but I think it's an upside down axe. So you've got that, the symbol of his authority as dictator. I don't know if you recognize what this is here. It's the hands. It's the hands clasping, right? Again, I don't know exactly what the message is here. It could be a lot of things, like Julius Caesar is the patron of the state. Like Julius Caesar is the senior patron. That kind of thing could be what's going on here. Julius Caesar has brought friendship. I mean, it could be something like that too. And then we've got a globe. Pompey put a globe on his coins, and Julius Caesar's going to put a globe on his coins too. Right? Julius Caesar is king of the world. That's what's going on here for Julius Caesar, and he's letting everybody know this. Dictator for life, but dictator for life is going to mean a dead dictator, because that's how you get rid of this guy. And again, you know this story. This is like, in some ways, like, it's kind of an anticlimactic, because you know what's going to happen. On the 15th of March in 44 BC, the conspiracy that had been planned, and who knows when it started, but some high-ranking people are involved. Brutus, the urban praetor, is one of the ringleaders of this conspiracy. Cassius, another important figure in the Roman government, allies with numerous conservative elites, is involved. Cicero is not. Cicero is not involved. He's very happy. Cicero will say, after Julius Caesar died, our tyrant deserved his death for having made an exception to the one thing that was the blackest crime of all. Here you have a man who was ambitious to be king. Everybody knew that that's what Caesar effectively was. He was master of the whole world. He achieved these things, according to Cicero. That is what he was. Even though he didn't have the crown, he was functionally a king. So these senators, several dozen senators, surround Caesar in Pompey's Senate house, right by the statue of Pompey that was there in the Senate house. Pompey, who had been killed in Julius Caesar's civil wars, killed in Egypt. They stab him. Again, we don't know if it's 23 times. We don't know if he says, "And you, Brutus." We don't know if he says those things. But his death would have been sudden, painful. It lacked dignity. I mean, he just bleeds out. They stab him, and they just kind of run away. A few different, some of them are scared of what's going to happen. Some of them think that they are going to be hailed as heroes, but he's just left on the floor of the Senate. And he dies. He bleeds out, and he's just kind of there. And the whole city of Rome probably heard. This happens in the morning. This happens in the morning of March 15th. And so by the afternoon, people are trying to figure out what they are going to do, because this guy who was so central to everything, religious, economic life, cultural life, political life, is now dead.
Hey, did you get something out of that video, or maybe learn something about Roman history that you didn't know before? Would you just click that like button? It's the best thing you can do to help the channel. The videos keep playing, and if you click the like button, it tells YouTube that you want more videos like this one. Maybe you have a question about what we talked about, or you know something, or have a comment that you want to share. Would you please type that into the comment box? I read those comments. That means I answer questions, or I listen to feedback, but also a lot of other people read those comments. And so if you want to add something to the discussion for other people, if you do that in the comments, that will help the video as well, and it'll keep the discussion going. Finally, if you want to get these videos when they come out and not just hope that YouTube is going to tell you, you can subscribe to the channel. Click the subscribe button and you'll get the videos as soon as I put them out. They'll come up to the front of your YouTube homepage, and wouldn't that be great? The last thing that I'll mention is my podcast, the Pax Romana podcast. I update that podcast every week. We do a couple of different things. One is we go through the story of the Roman Empire, from the death of Julius Caesar on a week-by-week basis, all the way through as far as you guys are interested in going. I think right now we're in the 3rd century AD. So you can listen to those as they go, almost like an audiobook. It's free. Or if you want to just dip into particular episodes, that's fine. The other thing I do from time to time on that podcast is I answer listener questions with kind of a longer treatment about some particular topic, theme, or area that listeners are interested in. So with that, thanks for watching the video, and take care. So